Hi, I'm Emily Hughes. I am a conscious parenting coach and somatic therapist, and I'm here with Poppy today.
Hi, yes, I'm Poppy. I am a celebrant. I am the children's celebrant, and I specialize in ceremonies for babies and for children.
So, Poppy and I met a little while ago, and we thought it would be a really cool idea to um, talk about rituals in modern life. And obviously, Poppy's a celebrant, so her thing is rituals all the time. But we were thinking about sort of what we've lost in modern life through not having that many rituals built into our life. So, yeah, Poppy, what do you think about that?
Well, the old saying is that people get together at birth, deaths, and marriages, and less people are getting married, and less people are having christenings as well, where births are celebrated traditionally. So people only generally meet together as a huge family or a community at funerals, and I think that's really depressing from a ceremonies point of view. Um, so I think it's really important to meet. I think it's so important to engage with family, friends, wider community, and celebrate the milestones, um, and those type of rituals. Yeah, and I know that there's lots of people out there who still do get married and still do christenings, but it's so much less. It's so much less than it was, and
Mm.
I think they're vital to communities and society being cohesive, and it's good for the children as well.
Yeah, and I think what you say about it being vital, I feel like part of that reason why it's vital is a sense of belonging and kind of like rootedness into culture. These are kind of the things that we remember, these big sort of special occasions. But then there's like the big special occasions, and then there's also kind of bringing more ritual into just all aspects of our life as well.
Absolutely. So the big occasions, are one thing, and then it's the rituals of the everyday. It's what's one of my biggest memories is always having a Sunday roast on a Sunday with
Mm.
the whole immediate family around, my granddad, my sister, her kids. And it's such a warm, fuzzy feeling that I think really gelled us together and still does as a family. That when we do get together, we have a roast. It's the thing, it's the glue that holds us together, and it creates
Yeah.
a sense of unity.
And I think sometimes if we haven't had those things in our childhood growing up, part of what I do with my clients sometimes, particularly when if parents come to me as a couple, is we'll spend a session talking about how they can create rituals which actually really fit with their own family, because I think this is a really beautiful thing. If you don't have that thing, and I think part of what's maybe why we might not have that thing is if you're not religious, then religion can give you lots of these kind of points of togetherness and sense of ritual and celebration. But if you're not religious, it's almost like there's an opportunity, if you're willing to take it, to come up with your own rituals and celebrations, which I think is actually quite a can be a really beautiful invitation to come up with something that's like bespoke to you. And I know I think, had I have known that your service exists, I probably would have done a naming ceremony for each of my children. And maybe you want to talk about that, but um, because I think I was like, oh, well, I don't want to get them christened because I'm not religious. So, but then it's like, oh, I've missed out on something a bit there by not having that point of celebration and connection and togetherness and ritual.
Yeah, I think naming ceremony is a really good example because traditionally it would have been christenings in when England was a Christian, mainly Christian country, and that that has changed now, and people aren't getting christened because there aren't as many people following the religion. But what christenings did is they paid homage to the people in that child's life that really mattered and
Mm.
celebrated that child becoming part of the church. So what a naming ceremony does is it takes all the brilliant bits of that ceremony, but without the religion, and brings it into the modern day. So you can pay homage to your friends who've been there through the pregnancy and say, thank you. Please continue to be there for my children as well. Instead of godparents, you can have guide parents, and bring them into the family. And you can also say thank you to the generations above, the brand new grandmas and granddads who are now they've graduated from parents to grandparents, and make sure they know how much that the childhood that they gave to you means to you now that you're a parent now, and you want to bring that forward. And it creates that sense of flow through the generations as well, I think, by having that moment in time to say, welcome baby, we celebrate you, and thank you to everyone who's made this possible. And
I love that idea of them graduating and marking that in a way. And I think one of the things that I was thinking as you're speaking there is like, I feel like my children are a little bit too old to do a naming ceremony, although maybe they're not, they're 5 and 7, but the thinking about kind of the rituals that I create, and one of the things that I've done, not really with my family, but it's with my friends. I've got a group of friends and we do a moon circle together where we meet well, it's not quite exactly under the full moon, but like around the full moon. And it's just a really beautiful thing because we know we're always going to come together 12 times a year, and it's like we sit around in a circle and we have a theme for each month, and it's become such an important part of all of our lives. And obviously things kind of spring out from that, but I really think, you know, if you haven't been given these chances for ritual, like finding ways to sort of find your own. And one of the ways in which you can do that is through the seasons and the moon cycles, and like there's other ways to find it. And a part of it's been interesting with me and my friends as we've started looking at the Wheel of the Year, and I don't know that much about it, but you know, the kind of ancient festivals that our ancestors would have honored. And it's been really interesting for me to be looking into that and kind of exploring, like, here are some other sort of ways that we can find celebration through also connection to nature and things like that.
I like that because that's everything's grounded in nature at the end of the day, and history. Nature and history are the two things that run through everything you do. And if you look back far enough, there is something for everyone. And I'm just thinking about how just weddings have changed, for example, and everyone's going back to hand fasting. And that was do you know about hand fasting?
No, tell me about hand fasting. What's that?
That's it's a big thing at the moment. It's where during a wedding ceremony the bride and groom, they hold hands like kind of like this, and you get different colored ribbons or cords, and they all represent something. So it might be earth, unity. Some people do it like it's earth and fire and all the elements. Some people do it that represents love and passion and things, and they're plaited together, and then they're wrapped around the hands in a special knot that when they put their hands out, it creates a unity knot. And it's it's an old pagan tradition, but that has come flowing back into the modern day because people want to signify their love in a way that has meaning, has depth, has roots, that's more than just saying I do in a registry office.
And I think those 3 words you used there, like meaning, depth and roots, those are powerful words. And I think we're all craving those things, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And I think it's all too easy to kind of plod through life and not feel like we're part of something bigger or like connected. And I think just these like, I think connection with nature and ritual are such kind of grounding things that help us feel like we belong.
Absolutely. And I think ritual like doesn't have to be big either. I think some of the best rituals that you have are intimate and small with your family that you may not even realize are rituals. Like I know that for me, one of things that I absolutely love more than anything is the little tiny ritual that my son and my husband go and get bread from the local bakery.
Yeah.
Every Sunday morning, that's what they do. They go together, they have their daddy son time, they go and buy the bread, and we have bread and honey for breakfast.
Mm.
And it is so simple, but that's what my husband used to do with his grandma. That's what that was their little tradition, and now he does it with our boy. So it's changed, but it's got roots in history, and it's small, and it's something you can do and keep up as a ritual, as a place marker, as a holder in the week. You know that yes, we're going to ground ourselves, we're going to enjoy some good food, we're going to hang out together, and there's going to be that bonding time for my husband and my son.
Yeah.
So, and I think people can find their own little ritual, their little thing, and it doesn't have to be once a week. It might be, you know, once a month you go for a walk in the forest. I think can just clear your mind, and you know that you're going to be together as a family with no screen time, and just have that time together.
And I think one of the things that having ritual does for children is it creates memories. And I think a lot of adults say that they can't remember their childhoods. And I certainly can't really remember my childhood that much. But the things that I can remember are the things that have that element of ritual to them. Because in terms of how memory is formed, they're acts of repetition, but they're also acts of connection. And they're kind of acts of presence. And I think those are the three things, the three qualities in which memories are easily formed when we feel present, connected, and through like a repetition. And yeah, trying to, that's really important for me, is that my boys have got, good memories of childhood. And one of the things that we do, which I think is really deeply embedded into our week, is every Sunday we do a family meeting. And it's chaotic. And it's not like a boardroom meeting because my children are 5 and 7. But there's a certain order of flow to it. So we start off with gratitude, and then we go into problems or issues. And it's democratic, so anyone can suggest a problem or issue that they're having. And then we go through the schedule for the week, and then we have either a meal or like a snack afterwards. And just that little point where that's a really strong family tradition that I feel like works really well for our family. Like, I say works really well. It's definitely not like we're all sat there in a boardroom, like everyone's like beautifully listening to each other. It's chaos, but like it works. Like it used to be for the first 6 months that we were doing it. My husband, I would say like it's time for family meeting, and my husband would go, ugh. But now he's totally. One thing with me is if I'm determined about an idea, I'm like, we are doing family meeting for the rest of our lives. And he has come round now to it being like a really lovely thing that we all do together.
That was going to be my question, that he's now on board.
He's on board. Yeah, took him a while, but once I'm really sold on an idea, I'm like, it's very hard I will commit to that. And that was something that's really important for me, I think, because not only does it add that point of focus to the end of each week, but I think also it helps give my children like a seat at the table, as in like, here's a chance where everybody's voice is a chance for everybody's voice to be heard, and like, I'm interested in your input, to the kids, and it'll help them. So for example, particularly if we're going on holiday, it's that chance to kind of go, well, what would you like to do on holiday, and so it's like they have, because children don't really have that much control over their lives, and giving them that kind of point, each week where it's like, oh, what would you like to tell us about your life and how you would like things to change. So yeah.
Good. And I think giving the chance to children to be present is so important, whether it's like your weekly meetings, which I'm totally stealing, by the way. My husband's all hate it too, but he will come mental. But also being present at things, and this has only come to my mind because it's a thing I've been talking about a lot with people recently, is having children at funerals. And being able, even if a child is young and they won't remember it, you know, just having the opportunity to be able to say, but you were there, you had the opportunity to say goodbye to your grandma, your father, your mum, your grandfather, whoever it is you're saying goodbye to, just because they're too young to remember it or to understand, being able to say in retrospect, but you were present, you were there, you were part of the community, I think is so important. It's so important.
And I think, death and this big, well, maybe you could talk on that because you're much more qualified to talk on that, but like death as a time for, if it's not marked with some ritual, could be potentially quite confusing for a child.
Absolutely. Like the ritual of saying goodbye is universal. It's across the whole world, and it's different in every country. But I think in the UK, it's very prudish. It's one of the most prudish countries at saying goodbye. We don't wail, we don't howl, we don't have very strong rituals. The only ritual we have is the funeral. And in most other countries, the children are very much present in the grief process, in the mourning, in the funeral, in the burying or the cremation. They are there and they are present. And there's a big reluctance, I think, to have them involved in the UK. And that makes me really sad, because one of my memories was my granddad's funeral, and I was 11 and it's really stuck with me. But I was so grateful to be there in hindsight because I got to say goodbye, and I can't imagine not having that opportunity. And I think when children are present, they also bring that person's legacy into the room as well. So the person you're saying goodbye to, if their grandchildren are there, or children that are grandchildren of their friends that were a big part of their life, it's like saying, we're moving forward and we're taking you into the future with us. You're in our collective memory, you're in our collective thoughts, including in these youngsters who are here today. And the importance of saying goodbye can't be underestimated.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I think, it's interesting because just amongst my group of friends, we were talking about this the other day. You know, children are very fascinated by death. And I think when we treat death as something that they are to be excluded from, that can be quite tricky, I think. And they're naturally interested in death. Like lots of children go through that phase when they're kind of 4, 5, or 6, when they become quite obsessed with death, and which is a very normal thing to do. Actually, my 7-year-old did not go through that phase. He instead became extremely curious about the origins of life, both from a kind of origins of the human species to also like how babies are made. Like, but I think, I think to be included in these a big part of being human, you know, in these times of death and birth, I think death, birth, and marriage, that it's important that, I think personally, it's important that children are, have that space. And I've seen from your stuff, you, particularly with weddings and things like that, like you involve children in that process. Want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I think there's always that thing circulating of, what do I do with kids at a wedding? Do I want a child-free wedding? And I think if you have kids at a wedding, they add so much. If you've got close friends and family with children, and you want them there, have them there. They aren't going to upstage you. They aren't going to upstage you as the bride. And I think there's always that fear that a child wedding is going to turn into a big, huge kids party, and it doesn't. You just need to be prepared. If you are a couple that wants quiet at certain points, talk to the parents, because the parents want you to have the best day of your life too. They're not against you. And if you tell the parents what's happening, they will make sure their babies and their children are quiet at the right times. If they're tiny babies, they might feed them or take them out. If they're bigger, they'll make sure they've got colouring in or something to do during like the pivotal vows or the kiss moment or whatever your big moments are. And to just be open and relaxed about it. And if you get a celebrant or a vicar who is used to working with children, they will help as well. They will make it as easy as possible for your day to go smoothly, and especially your ceremony. Making sure they're entertained, making sure that they're involved. And if the children feel involved in the ceremony, because that's always the best way to do it, the quieter they are, the happier they are, and the better the ceremony is for you.
And I think that's good advice for a lot of aspects of parenting too. Like, yes. I think involve your children, empower them, and then they will be less likely to be seeking power and attention at times that are less appropriate for them to be doing so. So it's definitely my vibe: involving children, empowering children, meet their needs so that they're not going to be scrabbling for their needs in less optimal ways.
Exactly. Give the kids the jobs that you may give your bridesmaids. That's always my big piece of advice. So get them giving out confetti. They love giving out confetti cartons. They might not be in your colour scheme because they're not a bridesmaid or whatever. It doesn't matter. They will love running around with a little basket going, confetti, confetti, confetti. Have them handing out the order of service. Have them doing lots of little jobs, because then they're invested in your wedding. They feel like they're a grown-up. And they love that.
Maybe we won't get them to plan the hen do, though.
No, leave that to your maid of honor. Don't get a 5-year-old to plan your hen. Otherwise, you'll have a bouncy castle, candy floss, and chaos.
Right, there's a reality TV show in the making here. Like,
oh, don't! I would watch that. I would watch that.
Okay, great. Well, it's been so lovely speaking to you. And if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about what you do, maybe do us a little rundown of what you offer and how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I am the Children's Celebrant, and you can find me on Instagram and my website. Both, well, all my social media is at the Children's Celebrant, and I'll make sure my website is posted with this video. I do baby namings, namings for siblings and older children as well. I also do weddings, and if you want children attending your wedding or involved in your wedding, I'm the person to come to. I can make sure your ceremony goes without a hitch and involve them as much or as little as you like. I also do funerals for babies and children, and also families that have children and babies who are also grieving. So it might be if their father or mother or grandparent has passed away and there's lots of children. I can help out, and we can make sure that those children feel involved in the funeral planning process and are part of saying goodbye. And we've done lots of amazing things with workshops and letter writing that we then bring together as part of the funeral ceremony. So it's a broad spectrum of things. So if there's anything there that I could help with, I would love to hear from you. I'm always full of ideas and love meeting new people.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And all of that list of things is like, yeah, just so powerful. So yeah, and I'm Emily. You can find me on social media at Finding Flow Parenting. So I work with individuals, couples, and groups on programs where it's like a 360 of how to become a conscious, empowered parent. So more connection, more flow, more joy, using parenting and all of your triggers as tools for personal growth and transformation. And I will also put my details in the, what do you call it, the bit underneath the video.
Yeah, the write-up.
I'm going to say show notes. But that's
I like that. I love that. Put it in the show notes.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's been so lovely.